What up? It's your boy Emu here, bringing the beef with two double nines. Hey guys, Snoopy here, and welcome to another episode of the Talk Emu podcast. had to hype myself up. Um, today, today I wanted to talk about more video games, but specifically games from a specific time period. So. I know I talked about a lot about I talked about games from my childhood or games that impacted my life in the first episode. And the second one I talked about uh, dying games, and a lot of those games were the ones that I grew up with. But today I specifically wanted to talk about my favorite games from the original Xbox, the Gen 6 console era, but specifically the ones on Xbox, because that's what I grew up with. I knew of other games at the time, like I knew about like Metal Gear Solid 2, like I knew about GameCube and Smash Brothers and Dreamcast and all that, but I I am from an Xbox family. I knew Xbox. I actually didn't have a Dreamcast. I had the Genesis and the handheld. My second Genesis is actually right next to me on my shelf here, sitting on top of an old NES. And when I say mine, it's my dad's, but those are here, right next to me, on the shelf in my storage closet where I record. It's nice and cozy in here. So so I wanted to talk about my favorite games from the Xbox, the original Xbox. So this would have been what, like 2000 to 2006, 5 or 6, I think was when the original Xbox was out, up until 360. Now there were some games that did come out, like I think after the 360 released or just around that time, and like I I, I particularly wanted to talk about the games that I played during that time period, but there is a game that I feel like I need to mention because it is such an amazing game for the original Xbox, but it came out the year the 360 came out. So it kind of went unnoticed, but they ported it to the Xbox One and Series X, and that's when I played it for the first time a couple years ago, and that is Black. I remember seeing that game on shelves. I remember because the cover was like a bunch of bullets, and I remember it looking kind of intriguing. And that game is phenomenal. If I had to recommend a shooter to someone, I would highly recommend Black. Um, yeah, the graphics are a little dated, but the game still holds up. It is a first-person shooter set in the Cold War era. The plot is almost identical to the original Black Ops, just without all the hypnosis stuff. But it came out way before Call of Duty, which makes me think Call of Duty kind of ripped it off. Because it's like too similar. Like your character is sitting in an interrogation room, and it shows like snippets of newspaper clippings from the time, and your character's like retelling a story from like a failed mission to like a government agent. Very similar, but it plays really well. It's got some map dynamics. It's got like a bunch of like side objectives. The the maps are like very open, and you can kind of attack some missions from different angles. Like it almost feels like an open, like some of the maps feel like Battlefield kind of like levels of openness. Really cool game. But again, I didn't play it until recently, but it is an Xbox original game, so I wanted to shout it out real quick. But I am going to get into the real games that I grew up playing. Now, there were a lot of games that I'm not going to mention, a lot of games on the original Xbox I played that I just wasn't as big a fan of. But these games are particularly like the ones that I liked. So the first game that I want to talk about is Sorry, I'm distracting myself. Oh yeah, I know a game. Quick game to talk about. Jet Set Radio Future. That's a good one to start with. As you can see by my podcast setup here, I am on a Jet Set Radio Future map. Uh, Probably the most iconic level from Jet Set Radio, Shibuya Terminal. Now, this particular map I'm on is actually someone repurposed it into a Team Fortress 2 map. So actually, it has Team Fortress 2 like ammo cabinets around the map and stuff. Um, and also the floor is a little off. The floor is actually like a couple inches beneath the tiles here, so I actually had to freeze everything like above the map, technically. But um, Jet Set Radio Future is still to this day my favorite video game ever. I grew up with it. I still play it to this day. I have made sure to keep old consoles around just so I can play it again if I get the itch. I love Jet Set Radio Future. I know that game is kind of divisive. Like I feel like people either absolutely love it or they don't like it at all. And I've never seen like a lukewarm take on JSRF. It's always love or hate. And I'm really upset that they remade the original and didn't remake Future. Because I feel like Future's the really popular one of the two. And I understand the whole music licensing thing, but you can get around that. You can do new music. I mean, the Tony Hawk games did it, so I feel like they could. And I mean, Mike D's still around. I'm sure they could get his permission or get him involved. And but um, the Jet Set games are great, or the Future at least. I wasn't as big a fan of the original, but Future's fantastic. Um, for those of you who don't know, Jet Set Radio Future is a game where you're on rollerblades and you skate around and grind on things. You can like grind up vertically because the skates have special like sci-fi technology in them or whatever. It's a very anime type game where there's like mentions of powers and there's a lot of like the ending gets all crazy where the villain turns into some crazy anime monster and there's a lot of talk of like harvesting souls and it gets crazy at the end. And there's also like there's a lot of subtext and stuff that they don't really talk about much, but like I have a lot of theories on Jet Set Radio and like a lot of theories of like there's definitely like a bigger plot there that they don't really touch on with like the like artificial like cyborg people and stuff and like the soul of the streets and also like the random countdown timers and the missile silos and the brownouts on 99th Street. They call them blackouts, but they're definitely brownouts because the blackout would have shut down the entire block, not just an individual section of the area. And with all the like missiles on Kibagoka Hill, I feel like they're browning out parts of the city to make nukes, which is a real thing that countries used to do. And but yeah, there's like the big like train monster thing at the end of the game, and the golden rhinos, and there's definitely a lot of plots there, and I've made a lot of theories about it over the years about how they're capturing Rudies to harvest their like soul power to put into these like robots like it gets pretty crazy uh with the with the potential there. But yeah, Jet Set is one of my favorite games. It's something that it's a game that's always kind of been a part of me that I always carry with me. And there is some great music in that game. I keep saying those games. I'm specifically talking about Future. There's a lot of music in that game that I love that I still listen to. and it's just really, really interesting, really neat and fun. And I wish they would have done more with it. I know some games have come out late after that that kind of tried to mimic the feeling of it, but it's just not the same. They really captured something special with Future. Um, so another big game from my childhood, which I already talked about a lot, some of these games in my games that impacted me. So I'll try not to spend too much time, especially on this next one, because I feel like everything's already been said about this one. Halo Combat Evolved. I mean, come on. And I guess I could count Halo 2 on here as well, because Halo 2 was also original Xbox. And and I mean those games were really impactful for their multiplayer as well as their story. Like the multiplayer and like that was like when online like online console multiplayer like started. Like that was a big deal. Like I remember Halo 2 matchmaking and and there's like the DLC packs for the maps on Halo 2. But the Halo games, I've already talked at length about the Halo games in my first podcast episode, so I won't spend too much time on them, but uh they were very important, very impactful, and just fun. And Halo 2 added so much after Halo 3, or I mean Halo 1. I don't know what's going on with me right now. I always get more stupid when I start recording. But yeah, the Halo games absolutely phenomenal, great on the original Xbox. Although there is another Microsoft sci-fi shooter for the original Xbox that came out and got the full like multimedia treatment, got books and all that, and failed. And that is Brute Force. Now, I haven't looked too much into why Brute Force failed. I love Brute Force. That's one of my favorites of all time. It was a third-person shooter for the original Xbox. It was funded by Microsoft. It was, Microsoft released a few like original console exclusives that got the like multimedia treatment with like book deals. Obviously, Halo's a big one, Gears of War was one, and Brute Force was kind of meant to be one as well. And I think Brute Force might. No, no, I think Halo is older. Brute Force is after, I believe. But still, like, Brute Force was one of my favorite games growing up. It was a big part of my childhood. A lot of fun. It's basically this, like, kind of. It's a sci fi game, but it was a little more gritty. Like, it was, like, kind of dark. And you play as these like kind of super soldiers, but they're clones of soldiers. And in the beginning of the game, they show you the characters dying, like horrible deaths. And then you're playing as like clones, like however many generations later, clones of these soldiers that died in battle. One of them didn't even, the main guy, Tex, didn't even die in battle. He was left behind. He was abandoned by his men and was choked to death by giant, like, boa constrictors. Like, it was a brutal game. And, but it was interesting. And there were, like, mutants. There were people that, like, they worked, uh, like, in this radioactive waste plant and it mutated them into, like, zombies and you see them, like, eating corpses. Oh, I forgot about, House of the Dead 3. Was that on? That was Gen 6, right? I know it was an arcade game, but there was a console version of it. That was really fun too. But um I didn't own that one. That was one my uncle had, and I played it at his house. But no, Brute Force was really fun. It had a fun like split screen mode, multiplayer mode. And it actually one thing that Brute Force had that was really cool is that so they were when you played the campaign, you would find these collectibles, and the collectibles unlocked characters for the multiplayer. And there was like each character fell into like a squad. Like there would be four characters um, that would fit into a squad. So you had like the four main characters that were brute force, and then you would get like unlock four like human mercenary characters that would be like the mercenary team, and then there's like three other alien factions that all fell into like their own team, and there was this multiplayer mode that was team versus team, and you would come in and you would control a full squad of four, and you could switch between the characters at will. You could command the characters around, and the two players would go against each other, each commanding a full squad of four characters, and each character had like an ultimate ability. That was kind of cool. Like the main four, there was Tex, who was like the big, gruff and tough, kind of like Duke Nukem type guy, and he was like super like sexist because it was 2002 or whatever, and he could carry two giant Gatling guns, like two big cannons, and then you had Brutus, who was the lizard guy, and he could like activate this like thermal vision mode where he could like kill people by running into them, and he could regenerate. Then there were the two girl characters. One was like the scout; she could turn invisible, and she had this like laser knife that would one shot people. And then Flint, that was Hawk, and then Flint was a cyborg. They called her a semi-synthetic cyborg. Um, and she could zoom in an extra time with any scoped weapon because of her synthetic eyes. And then she also had basically aimbot. She had like auto targeting, and she was the sniper. And then there were other characters that had variations of those powers, or like there's like a race that could teleport. There was a race that didn't have powers, but their power bar, their like alt meter was an energy shield. Like it was converted to like an energy shield meter so they could take more damage. And then there were these aliens called the Hounds, and there were these weird little like tripod alien things that like fired like projectiles, and they ran so fast. And I remember just running around my friends real fast in a circle, just messing with them. And then or there were the guys that teleported, and that was fun because you shoot someone and then you teleport before they could find you. And they had these roller mine grenades. They were these big round grenades that you drop them and they would seek out a target, and they made this horrendous beeping noise. But I think like if there were no targets around, it would like come back to you and explode. And those were always fun to play with. But yeah, brute force. I feel like there's a lot of potential there, and it would have been cool to see another one. But then another game on the original Xbox that I think, see, I want to say the original Xbox had a lot of games that shipped with it, like included with it. And I remember Fusion Frenzy being a game that like kind of everyone had. And Fusion Frenzy was a lot of fun. It was a party game essentially. Um, you could get up to like four players, and the whole thing was mini games, kind of like a Mario Party type kind of thing, I guess. But and you would progress. You'd have to do a certain amount of mini games per stage, and each stage had its own like themes. Like there was one that it was all like vehicles, like tanks. There was one that was all like racing, like jet bike racing. There was one that was all water based, boats and stuff. Then there was like a subway one that had like a lot of bugs that you had to fight off, and then once you beat a certain amount of mini games, then there was the Fusion Frenzy where you could gamble your points that you earned during the mini games, and then there was just this like giant kind of battle royale where you had to collect the most amount of orbs and like fight off the other people. Like you could go up and punch people and make them drop stuff. And there was like map dynamics. Each map had like a thing you could trigger, like that would like blow up or affect a part of the map. And Fusion Frenzy was a lot of fun, had some cool quirky characters. But then they made a sequel when the 360 came out, and it just wasn't the same. It just wasn't as fun, and they tried to like make more of a narrative out of it. But that one did get ported to the Xbox One. You can still play it on modern consoles. And That one was just fun. That was just fun with friends and family. It was something everyone could kind of play and have fun with together. Um, and then there was MechAssault. MechAssault was a game that I spent a lot of time on. I don't know if I think I did beat it eventually, but it was pretty tricky for me because I was so young. I wanted to preface when the original Xbox came out, I was like 4. So it, and then when by the time the 360 came out, I was like 9. So that was the age range there. And but yeah, Mech Assault was cool because you it was like third person. There were a bunch of different mechs that had different weapons, and you just run around and you could like topple over buildings, and you like it'd have like enemy armies. Like the infantry was so tiny, they were like little bugs, and you like step on them, and there were different like gun types and ammo types you had to pick up, and that was a fun game. And I remember you had to like play through the game to like unlock different mechs, and there's this one mech. It was like the final mech, like the final boss mech. That thing was insane. I forget what it was called. I remember what it looks like. It had like a cylinder on it. Um, that thing was nuts. But I remember there were a few I remember. There was the Mad Cat. That's like the famous one on the cover. Then there was like the Mad Dog, which was smaller. There are these like exosuit ones. It was like human sized mech that was fun to fly around with. There was the Atlas, which was like this giant, like rectangular kind of robot looking guy. And then there's I remember the Thor, and there was a mission that was so hard. You had to sneak into the enemy base as a Thor mech, and you had to like sneak without getting detected. And then like halfway through the mission, you get found out anyway, and you have to run away while like the entire enemy force attacks. That mission, I remember spending so much time on that mission. That one was so hard. I hated that mission. But then there was also a game called Crimson Skies, which is also available on modern console. Um Crimson Skies I didn't play as much. It was a little tricky for me at my age, but that game was you flew a plane, like fighter plane, and there were like side quests, and like you would there were different levels that you go through throughout the story, but there'd be like this like kind of town, and there'd be different side quests you could do, and like tricks and areas you'd have to find in your plane. But that one was fun. I just remember there was a split screen mode. Every game had a split screen mode back then, and it was so much fun. Like it wasn't so much a it wasn't like the focus on multiplayer that we have now with games. It was more the focus on local multiplayer and co-op, like playing with your friends and stuff. That that's what was so cool about the early gen games, and what I kind of really dislike about modern gaming. And uh, yeah. But I remember there was this vehicle, there was a plane in Crimson Skies called the Gyrocopter. It was like this little person-sized helicopter, and it was so fast and so hard to hit because it was so small. We had like this ban, like you were not allowed to use the gyrocopter because it was so annoying. And I would always use it, of course, because I was young and wanted to win, and I sucked, and I know I couldn't win conventionally. So then, another game I spent a lot of time on the original Xbox was the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets game. There were Harry Potter games on the old consoles. I remember there was a on PlayStation 1 had a Sorcerer's Stone game, and then the original Xbox had Chamber of Secrets, and that one was really cool. You could go around all over Hogwarts. You could go around in the grounds, and it followed the story of Chamber of Secrets, but added some stuff in for the game. And you'd like had to unlock spells, and there were certain areas you could only access with certain. It was kind of like a Hogwarts Legacy. It Hogwarts Legacy does way more. Is a way bigger game, like a billion times bigger, but it was kind of similar in how it worked. And I remember there were a lot of stealth missions in that game. There was like a sneaking system, and those would kill me as a kid. The I was always so scared of getting caught. But yeah, I don't know if I ever beat that one, but I used to play it a lot, and that was a lot of fun. I liked that game. And then there were the Rayman games. So there were only two Rayman games I played on the original Xbox. That was Rayman Arena and Rayman 3. Um, Rayman Arena was like there were kind of two modes. There was like a fighting mode and a racing mode. It was mostly like a racing game, but it was foot races. It wasn't like a kart game. But it was cool because there were different characters that had like different abilities, and the maps had so many different dynamics, and there were shortcuts, and it was just a lot of fun. And then Rayman 3 was like an actual like story game, which is still available to play on modern consoles. I think it got ported to the 360, and then that version is on like Xbox X. But those were just fun, silly games. I just remember Rayman and Glowbox being such an idiot, and pretty much the whole Rayman 3 happens purely because Glowbox. But um, that was a fun game. That was more of a platformer, kinda. I remember there were a lot of big platformers when I was a kid, and like the 3D platformers, and but Rayman also added in a good mix of action, and there was like different suits that had different powers that you'd have to find and complete the puzzles in a certain amount of time. And it was a goofy game, but I always had a lot of fun with it. And then a game that was a little more advanced, Phantasy Star Online. This is a game. All right, those three words, there's one of my cousins. When you say those three magic words, Phantasy Star Online, he becomes a different person. He like it's like giving him crack. It's like those words perk him up. They make him so happy, and all he talks about is Phantasy Star Online. It's like his favorite game ever. Uh, and Phantasy Star Online was cool. I was very young. I went back in recent years, more recent years, and played it again because like I never got too far, but it was a like action adventure sci-fi RPG game, and it's kind of hard to explain. But you'd go through, there were different stages, and you'd go through, each stage had like different enemies and a different boss at the end. And there's like three classes. There were different races and different classes. There's like a human, an elf, and a cyborg. And then there's like you could be a gun guy, sword guy, or magic. And there were different kinds of magics, and there was like elemental magics, there were magics that would buff or debuff, and then there was like teleportation. And um I just remember like you between missions you could drop a telepipe, go back to the home base, use the store, get items. You could like deposit your money and stuff, and then there was like a hard mode that would actually change the enemies, and it was like a whole new experience. All the enemies were different, and the bosses were different. But I do fondly remember Phantasy Star, and then Phantasy Star Online actually had two episodes, so it had like two games in it, and pretty much. And I just remember in one of them there was a boss where you enter the arena and there's flowers everywhere. And then when the boss spawns in, all the flowers turn into skulls. And I just remember that being so cool and so freaky. Um, those are cool games. Then, unfortunately, there was a Phantasy Star 2, but it only came out in Japan. And it wasn't released in America till like 2019. And it was just not the same. It played more like something like Warframe or Destiny, one of those really grindy type games. And like they had more classes. The class system was cool, But I don't know. I guess I kind of expected more from a game that was that old, that had been going on for so, because it was like a live servicey kind of game. Honestly, the most fun part of that game to me is it had a giant casino in like the hub world area. And I remember me and my buddy would sit, or maybe it was my cousin. I don't remember which one of us it was, but we would just sit at the blackjack table and just play in the casino, and everyone's trying to go to a mission, and it wouldn't let us go unless we were there. And they're always yelling at us to stop playing. And see, I'm glad video games exist for the reason that I understand now that why I don't go to casinos. Because if I went to casinos, I would definitely have a gambling addiction. With the way I am in games, whenever a game has a casino, whether it's like GTA or Mass Effect or Danganronpa, a lot of games have casinos in them. And I always spend so much time playing blackjack there. Even Resident Evil 7 had a blackjack DLC. And yeah, it's a good thing I don't go to casinos in real life. Because I remember even in arcades when they have like the games that are clearly there to farm your money, like the claw games and stuff. Like I'm so stubborn, and I am the guy that says we can't end on a loss, and we'll stay up till like 3 in the morning trying to win a game. Like yeah, it's a good thing I only play online video game casinos with fake money. Because loot boxes on Smite cost me so much money. I trying to get this super cool skin, just dumping like $20 after $20. Oh, I'm not proud of that. That's also when I used to drink a lot, so I was not in a good mindset. And I would just dump so much money into these skins on Smite. Oh, it was terrible. So- and now with Smite 2 out, or the beta out, I'm like fighting that same urge again. It's like I can't do it again. I can't spend 30, 40, 50, $100 on skins again, especially now that I'm unemployed. I can't do that. uh anyway, Lego games. Lego games. Yes. I used to love Lego games. I don't like them anymore. I can't play them anymore. They just like, I don't know, they're not fun to me anymore. When I was a kid, they're the funnest thing ever. I loved Legos growing up. There's a giant total Lego sitting right next to me here in the closet here. There's a Lego set over there. There's Bionicles over there. Man, I'm so sad. Bionicles, like, they break now. They're not built to last. It's been like 20, 30 years. They don't hold up anymore. Very sad. But, um, yeah, I got, Naparu. I think I see a Rakshi in there. I see Vezon. I think Vezon's the one that's broken. I see Jala. Yeah, anyway. As you can see in my podcast set here, I have Kopaka, the original 2001 Kopaka Mata behind me. Um, I have in Gmod, I have all the Toa Matas, Takanuva, and a Rakshi that has like color changing on it. But just a weird little flex there. Also, there was no real theme with the characters I picked today, except for Soda in the back there, since I'm on a Jet Set Radio map. Um, but yeah, um, yeah, the Lego games. Love the Lego games. Um, Loved the games. Great games. Terrific games. The best games. Um, Lego Star Wars was the main one for me. The first three, the original Lego Star Wars, Lego Star Wars 2, and then the complete saga, which I think were all no, Complete Saga was 360, I believe. But the first two were original Xbox. The first Lego Star Wars was the prequel trilogy, and I spent so much time in there, had a blast with those games. I don't think I ever 100%ed any of them. They were so hard to 100%. I remember I was a big fan of Lego Batman. I think that was a 360 one though. Had a lot of Lego games. I 100%ed the first Marvel Superheroes, which was on, I think, on Xbox One, and I own it on my computer too. I think I 100%ed it twice technically, but that one was so much fun. That was the last fun Lego game. And I, like, adult me loved Lego Marvel Superheroes. The second one wasn't as good. Lego Batman 3 was fun. Had so many characters in it. They should have called it Lego DC. So many characters. But no, specifically Lego Star Wars and the Bionicle Mask of Light game. I spent so Bionicle Mask of Light. It was a game that kind of loosely followed the plot of the first movie, but it also kind of included the early Mata like stuff and like the Bow Rock stuff. But um the you played as like the Seven Toa, and they each had like each level was themed around their abilities, except for Pohatu's. His was just a minecart mission, and you just rode in a minecart. It's like, dude, the dude's got super speed. Why is he in a minecart? and um, but that was a fun game. I also was a big fan of Bionicle Legends, which was a Wii game, and I think it was on the Gen 7 consoles. That was like a true third person shooter. But the Mask of Light game was fun. That was also third person, and you like explore around different areas and collect stuff, and that was fun. It was a good game. Um, and then Star Wars Republic Commando. Oh, Star Wars Republic Commando is such a game in my heart. Um, it's funny. There's two games, very every now and then I will watch a YouTuber or a streamer, I'll watch a video, and I will hear either Jet Set music or Republic Commando music, and it brings a tear to my eyes, and it touches my heart, and it warms my soul. Um, to know that these other millennials out there remember the good things in life is like, I saw like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure video that used like Jet Set music in the background, and 407 from the Vanoss crew used it in his Tarkov videos. Doug has used both Jet Set radio music and Star Wars Republic Commando music. Whenever he does something dramatic, he'll play like the Star Wars Republic Commando title screen music. And I don't know, that always makes me so happy to hear that, to know that those things aren't fully dead. It warms my millennial heart. But um yeah, Star Wars Republic Commando is a first person tactical shooter for the original Xbox, I think 2005. It's so good that they still port it to the new consoles to this day. It is You can play it right now on Xbox One or Series X. Yeah, with when I say that, I feel like I'm not sponsored by Xbox. I'm just letting you know that you can still play these games today, or most of these games today, if you want to. But Republic Commando was so cool. It's centered around four commandos. Boss, who was the leader that you play as. Fixer, the hacker, that was like a big kiss up to the boss. There was Scorch, the goofy, quirky demolitions expert, which his voice actor, I don't remember the voice actor's name, but he plays Caden in Mass Effect. And he was also your like first companion teammate in Knights of the Old Republic. Um, and then there was Sev, who was Scorch's pod brother, which is basically like a twin. Even though they're all clones, they were bred in like the same tank. And Seb was the very disturbed, like dark one of the group, and he was the sniper. And those characters were included in Bad Batch and like Clone Wars. Although Scorch was killed in the most infuriating. I didn't watch Bad Batch. I don't really watch the Star Wars cartoons, but I saw that clip and that made me so infuriated that they would kill Scorch in such a stupid way. But yeah, Republic Commando was awesome. And what I kind of get a little infuriated when I think about Republic Commando, because the AI controls in that game were so good. They're like, and even like a lot of old games had really good AI companion controls. Even like Half-Life 2 Episode 1, where you would coordinate with Alex and you would do specific things and her AI would like help you and do things like it was smart. And then you look at other modern games, you look at like Gears of War, Resident Evil 5, and the most blatant contender, Halo 5. Oh my, I have nightmares about the AI in Halo 5. Oh, I there there are certain games that are guaranteed to make me like throw my controller. Halo 5 is one of them, and it's just because of that. Although I will say I'm not actually really a controller thrower, I'm a controller squeezer. I can feel the plastic panels popping off of my controller when I get mad. It's very hard to get me to that point, but there are certain games that just grind my gears. But no, Stars Republic Commando was so cool. And that's also like, if you look up lists or look up the topic online of non-horror games that had a horror level, Republic Commando is usually on there. There were a lot of games that like in that time period that had like an obligatory scary level. Um, Halo had 343 filled three 343 guilty spark. I have problems talking. I'm dyslexic. Um, 343 guilty spark, the flood reveal, um, Gears of War. Even though Gears of War was always kind of trying to tread in the horror direction, the the oh, what's the place called? I'm the Gears of War guy. I don't remember. It was the lab with the Sires and Niles. It was Gears of War 2. Um what was that? I'm sorry. It's killing me now. It's one of those things where I have to know. New Hope. The New Hope Research Facility. That level was super freaky. Really scary. Um Batman Arkham Asylum had the Scarecrow segments. And Half-Life 2 famously had its Ravenholm level, which was like the zombie town. Star Wars Republic Commando was no exception. There was a scary moment where you enter this ghost ship and you're going around in the ducts, in the vents, and you're in like a black and white night vision mode, and you can like see other clones being dragged off to their death, and you can hear screeching in the background and like frantic cries for help and see blood and like that was a really cool creepy moment. I love Republic Commando. It was also really cool that your main gun, you could pick up other weapons, but your main gun was a multi-purpose tool. It was an assault rifle, and then you click a button and it transforms into a sniper rifle. Click a button, it transforms into a rocket launcher. It was really cool. And then you had like the retractable knife on your fist, like it would like shoot out of your fist. And like, it was really cool. Um, thing was called the Blade. Yeah, I'm a nerd. So then coming up to the last two games here, I guess I'll mention this one first. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. So this is a game that is still semi-relevant today, and I'll get to that. So I think the original Battle SpongeBob BFBB was like it was on a different console and it was like a whole different game. Then when they made the Xbox version, they like basically made a whole new game. They just called it the same thing, and it was like kind of I don't want to say open world. There was like a big hub area that you'd unlock stages of as you progress, and then each hub area had levels linked to it. Um, so I guess it was kind of like Crash Bandicoot in that sense, or like Wrath of Cortex in that sense. But oh, was Wrath of Cortex on the original Xbox or was that 360? I don't remember. That was a good one too. But um, but yeah, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. It was like a 3D platformer action adventure game that kind of had some RPG elements. Like as you progressed, you would unlock new abilities, and you could find items to like increase your health and stuff. And there's a lot of puzzles, and I used to get so stuck on that game. Um, and then In recent years they made a remaster, and I remember there were a lot of people that were mad, that were like, why would they remake this game? No one asked for this. A lot of people did, because even though SpongeBob BFBB didn't really stay relevant in the masses in the mainstream, there was a very select niche of people that were keeping that game alive, and that is the speedrunning community. So I'm not a super big speedrunner person, but I definitely have spent a lot of time looking into the speedrunning community and watching speedruns and watching GDQ, and I've definitely developed a love and appreciation for the speedrunning community, and they have kept Battle for Bikini Bottom alive. I remember when when it finally got accepted to GDQ, um it was like the number one for a very, very brief moment. SpongeBob BFBB was the number one viewed game on Twitch. And just crazy. So there was a small team of people, a community that was keeping it alive all these years behind our backs, and they made it so popular again that they made the remaster. And then they went and made a whole other game. There's like a new, I didn't play it, but there is a new like SpongeBob game that plays like BFBB. I don't remember what it's called, but that's just cool. I like seeing stuff like that, and that's what I've kind of been hoping would happen with Jet Set Radio, but I'm not so lucky. Because I know there is like a decent speedrunning community for Jet Set, but not as big and passionate as the BFBB speedrun community. There's this guy I watch, Shift. He's like the biggest one. He's like the main one, the guy that like kind of kept it alive all these years. I know there's other ones, and I'm not trying to discredit them, but he's like the popular one. Um, and then, so then I guess the last game I'll talk about. This one I played kind of more towards the end of the Xbox's life. I think the 360 might have been out by the time I really played this game, but it was Gauntlet Dark Legacy. And this was so Gauntlet 4 was a game on the Sega. Gauntlet Dark Legacy played a bit different. It was a third person action adventure RPG, and there was like a hub area. That's kind of a trend with a lot of these old games. There's a hub area, and then you would go to like different missions. Even Jet Set was kind of like that. But this one was, there were colored crystals, and you'd have to collect the crystals throughout the different worlds. And once you collected a certain amount of crystals, you would unlock a new world or like a new stage. And there were like different levels per world, and that were all themed. There was like a graveyard, there's a mountain, there was a castle, there was like a sky level, swamp, sand. Like there were all different ones. And then there were these like golden relics you would have to collect, and those would let you go to like the final areas. And I don't think I ever got past the sky area in that game, or the castle. I don't remember, but I wouldn't mind playing that game again today and seeing how well I fare. But that was one of those games where you could get overrun very quickly. But there were so many different items. And I remember, so back in the day, when you bought a game in a case, yes, games used to come in cases. They weren't just digital. And old games is kind of like music, kind of like CDs in a way. The games came with booklets, and the booklets gave you tips for the game, and they would have the characters and like the abilities and weapons and items and stuff about them. And I'm not talking like the big Prima guides or whatever, um, like the big strategy guides. I'm talking, these were like the little booklets that came with the game that would have like lore and information about the game in them. And um the I think to really know what some of the items did in Gauntlet, you'd have to like read in the booklet or just figure it out. Because there was death was an enemy in Gauntlet, and there were two deaths. There was like a red and a black, and they each did a different thing. One like took your life, and one like took your like experience or whatever. I don't remember. But they would just pop up randomly and attack you, and you needed like a certain item to get rid of them. It was so terrifying. It was always like this thing is like there were certain things that would have a chance of spawning death, and it was like so scary. But another thing that was really cool is each boss, there were so many bosses, and each boss had like a weakness, and there was an item you would have to find in the different levels, and they would be in different worlds. Like you could be playing on the mountain world, and the item for killing the boss from the previous stage would be in the mountain world, and then to find like the boss for the mountain world, his item might be in a different world, and, and that was just really cool. And you didn't need these weapons to beat the bosses, but they helped considerably. And that was just a really fun game. And there is this over dramatic narrator in the game. And to this day, me and my cousins will reference this game. There is in the game, like there were different characters you can play as. And I just got an achievement. I think I just got an achievement for playing Gary's mod for over a total of a week's time, and it says you've wasted your week. Thank you. That makes me feel good about myself. um anyway, so there were different characters that you'd unlock and stuff. There's like the wizard, the knight, sorceress, the dwarf or whatever, and then you would have a different color because it was like 4 player. So each player could be like a different color. It was like red, blue, green, and yellow. And when you leveled up in the game, it would be like Blue Knight has gained a level. And then if you were like really low on health, it'd be like Blue Knight is about to die. And me and my cousins will still bring that up to this day. It's like one of our inside jokes. It is really funny. I wish there are some of these games like Gauntlet or like the original Phantasy Star that I wish they would still port to the newer consoles. Um, I mean, I'm grateful for the ones that they do, but it's a shame that that they don't. So yeah, so those were some of my all-time favorite games from the original Xbox, from the Gen 6 Xbox. Um, so I kind of wanted to do kind of a bit of a series on this and like visit each console, each Xbox from the generations and kind of talk about my favorite games from that console specifically. So next time will be 360 games. Then it'll be Xbox One games and then Series X games. So I probably won't have as many to talk about for Xbox One, but I also have to like figure out or remember which ones are Xbox One and which ones are X, because to me they're almost the same. Because the UI is the same, the games pretty much carry over, except for Black Ops Cold War. You know, they when I got my Series X, they wanted me to buy the game again on Series X, and it's like where every other game just naturally transitioned over. I hate Activision. I hate Call of Duty. I hate them so much. I I've talked about that a little bit already in previous episodes. Which is a shame because Call of Duty did so much for my life. Uh, don't meet your heroes, I guess. But yeah, so yep. So that's kind of the idea that I'm gonna do for the next couple episodes. I might work some other stuff, other things in here and there. Um, sorry, I'm getting distracted by things in my closet here. Oh, there's stuff in here that I haven't touched since I was like 5. But yeah, so so that's kind of a series that I want to do. I still plan on doing some other stuff, other videos, the like the tier lists. The tier lists are just fun, and also I want to do like some Sporkle quizzes. I think that would be fun for a video. Just do a whole bunch of different Sporkle quizzes, and you can see how much of a freak I am, how much of an absolute nerd. The some of the things I know, and like typing out entire lyrics to entire songs, or typing out all the JoJo stands, or typing out all the devil fruits. Like, oh, it's I have issues. I have serious issues. But that's his life. So, yep. So that's it for today's episode. This is fun. I like talking about old stuff because I'm old, and that's the only fun I have is remembering old things from many years ago. Yeah. Um, Thanks again for watching slash listening. I've been the Snoopy Emu. Yep, I'm the Snoopy Emu. I'm sorry, I'm getting dementia already. All right, so uh, yep, I I don't know what's wrong with me. Every time I have to edit a video, I just I just lose my mind. All right, so yeah, so I'm the Snoopy Emu. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one of whatever it is. Um, Bye.